people wanted to learn, but they believed adoption was a negative story to look into. So I think what I would like advise and suggest is just say like it was just look at adoption as a different path of life that you just have not been aware of.
Hello, and welcome back to the You Need a Counselor podcast. My name is Dr. Julie Johnson. I'm the president and founder here at Heart and Solutions. We've got another president and founder here today of the You Go Girl Leadership Institute. So we're excited to talk to our guest today, all the way from Atlanta. So we are here in Iowa. Heart and Solutions is still doing outpatient mental health therapy. So if you're in Iowa looking for outpatient mental health therapy or in-home behavioral health counseling at any of our 6 office locations, let us know and we can get you started with a counselor.
And I'm Chrissa Hunt. I am the Vice President at Heart and Solutions in charge of our BHIS department. So BHIS stands for Behavioral Health Intervention Services, and that is our program where we go in-home and work with children ages 4 through 19 on different behavioral skills. So we can work with their parents and the children all together on those behaviors. And we usually meet them in home, but we can see them in the office or school or telehealth right now as well. And this is our podcast, You Need a Counselor. So we are designed for people curious about counseling, but have barriers keeping them from experiencing the benefits of counseling. Our mission is to share stories about counseling, good, bad, and indifferent, and spread the message that everyone can benefit from mental health and behavioral health counseling services.
Yeah, so we post on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Central Time, and we encourage you to batch up whatever horrible task you hate doing, like putting away your laundry into outfits so that you have clothes for the week. Now, I will tell you this, every single Sunday, it helps me so much. I do put on the podcast and I listen to it, and I put away my clothes, my clean clothes, and my daughter's clean clothes, my husband's clean clothes as outfits, and they match their own socks and all of that. Now, when our routine gets disrupted, this is spring break week. We are, Sunday night was not a night that I could listen to the podcast and put away clean clothes. So today I am wearing a St. Patrick's Day.
Okay. Much dedication. I love the dedication.
It's when we create, it feels like it's going to be work to create these routines. And these systems for ourselves that I don't think about putting away clean laundry until Sunday night, 5 p.m. and I'm attaching it to this other thing that I want to do. And when that routine gets off center or off track, it really helps us to recognize, wow, that routine really helps me a lot by doing it, because it's only when I don't and I realize like I'm going to wear a St. Patrick's Day shirt the day before St. Patrick's Day that we really see the benefit of those routines that we put in place. So Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Central, it can be your meal prepping for the week. It can be putting away your laundry for the week. Whatever it is, that gives you the entire week to get scheduled with your counselor, to connect with our guest for that week and all of the resources that they bring to the show. So our guest today is Danielle Porter. She's joining us from Atlanta, Georgia. She is the founder and president of You Go Girl Leadership Institute. Hi, Danielle. Welcome.
Hi. Hello. Thank y'all for having me. I'm so honored. And even in your opening messages, Dr. Julie and Chrissa, I just really love the commitment that y'all have for the youth. I used to live in Davenport, so I love that Iowa has this resource. And I agree with you on the routine. So now I'm about to roll that in.
Awesome. Yeah, those routines are so important, but they're front end loaded in terms of our energy. And so it's like, oh, I don't want to put in the energy to create that routine. But then once we have it in place, it carries us. And then we realize like, oh, that's really helpful, because now I'm scrambling for clothes in the morning. So
exactly.
Love that. So Danielle, tell us about You Go Girl Leadership Institute. What is that?
It is my purpose. I always share, when I share about You Go Girl, I have to share just a tiny bit of my testimony. So I was adopted at birth by my mom, who I know is my mom. But it's so funny how they chose this life for me. So biologically, she is my cousin that raised me, but my biological mother, I still was able to be in her life and she in mine. So I was raised with very openness and love, and almost pride for my story, along with 10 of my siblings, 8 of which who were adopted and fostered. So I went out into the world, very bold in sharing that testimony. But as you know, or may not, when you get to high school, kids can be a little mean. And some adults, they may not have the mental awareness and social savvy that we have now. And people can just really say some harmful things that it led me to be a little bit more quiet about my story, not willing to share it, or even just take on the perception of what adoption and foster was. So I knew it was a seed in me that wanted to create a space where adopted and fostered and even kinship girls were safe and were protected and able to share in a level platform. So fast forward to the pandemic, I was helping my little sister who lived in Iowa too, and she herself was adopted, and she narrowed her option, I should say, to one school. And I'm like, girlfriend, I'm like, you have an 8 point average. I'm like, why are you not applying all other places? And so that led into big sister mode and creating and calling all my friends in different networks and like, oh, we can go visit these schools. And it turned to a conference that I didn't want to be a conference until my good friend, she was like, Danielle, I don't think you are aware of the network that you have and why that is meant to bless people. And that was our first college readiness conference, you college for the real girls. So after that, I knew as I kept meeting other girls and experiencing even what my sister experienced, I'm like, I want these resources to be for them. And it kind of brought me back to that moment again in fifth grade where someone said I only had a resource because I was adopted. Well, let's make that the standard and not the stigma. So, You Go Girl was birthed 2019. And so we are here today continuing college readiness conferences, continue summer camp programs for our girls. And even one of the ones I really love, we help educate the community on respectful adoption language, to again take away that stigma and that perception of our girls' stories. So yeah, in a nutshell,
That's awesome.
hopefully.
Really cool. Okay, so are you serving across the country? Are you focused in the Atlanta area?
Yes, yes, yes. So we partner right now and focus on the cities I'm coming from. So Atlanta, where I currently am, and Chicago, where I'm from. That was where we had our first she's home, excuse me, block party where girls can come and just celebrate their stories. Such it was just nostalgic if you're from Chicago, and also the Voorhees, New Jersey area. So that's where we did our first purse donation drive and partnered with the family church there. So yeah, 3 cities right now.
Awesome.
Wow, beautiful. I love that you described how it was challenging to tell your story growing up. And you described how children can be lacking in emotional intelligence as well and in
Yes.
those skills. But you also mentioned that adults also it can be just lacking in that awareness, that emotional intelligence, that empathy, and those skills. And so I love that you describe it in that way. And it sounds like that's very connected with the educational aspects that you're doing about respectful adoption language. Can you tell us more about what are things that you think that adults and children need to know when they have the intention of being respectful about adoption, but might not have the information or the skills to do it?
Yeah, I think, and it's amazing. I thank you for that, Julie, because we touched on this during our Always Accepted event. A lot of the times when we found out, like you said, people wanted to learn, but they believed adoption was a negative story to look into. So I think what I would like advise and suggest is just say like it was just look at adoption as a different path of life that you just have not been aware of. I think one of the beautiful things about food is it is a transitional way into another culture. So just look at it as like you're learning a new culture, you're learning a new lifestyle. And I think that'll help just take away that um, I can't think of the word, but make it a little more ease in learning, and then just ask the questions like, "Hey, does it offend you if I ask you this way?" And I think for children, I think continue to celebrate adopted and foster girls. So if you are sharing with, I don't know if it's, and I'm making up these terms here, not in the dictionary anywhere, but non-adopted children, like just share the beauty of being adopted. Like especially if you have a child, as myself, I was very bold in sharing that. Like I would say, reignite that as a parent or as an adult and be like, oh my gosh, like they love where they're from. They love that their story led this way. So I think those are the two I would say.
Yeah. So you mentioned quite a few different events you guys do. You talked about like summer camp, the She Home Block Party, the Always Accepted event. What are some things that you do during those events with the adopted girls?
Yes, yes, yes. So one of the fun ones we had, so was I'll talk about our summer camp program, which actually was requested by the local John Harlan Boys and Girls Club. So he noticed his girls, he wanted them to have a little bit what was deemed traditional ladylike I guess, experiences. And I myself, I think we take that away. Like, at least being a girl, you have to grow up so much sooner, especially a Black girl sometimes, just with our natural curves and hips. And so, one of the things we did together was a week of etiquette and decorum. And it's so funny. One of my girls, she was just like, Miss Danielle, I'm not going to do well in this class. I don't talk proper. I don't do this, and for me, it like riled up of like a how dare, but it also brought beauty of, sharing with her, like, who told you that you couldn't be worthy of learning something just because you come from a place or have a background. So we had the girls, they learned how to make placemats. They learned how to have small talk even. Because again, the goal is for our girls, they will be at, scholarship galas. Hopefully we'll host at the end of this year or different interviews. And I never want any of our girls to be in an atmosphere that they feel uncomfortable. So one is like a decorum and etiquette that they love. It's their favorite one because they also get to eat. But that's one of the fun ones.
I love that you identify there, and even in that example, that story, the skills that we learn versus who we are. And it's so tempting to think, well, that's not who I am. I can't be that. I can't do that. I can't learn that. Or that's not what I know. And being able to expand that into, no, you are absolutely a person who can do this and learn these skills and do these things. You just don't know how to do it yet. Here's how to do it. And being able to take those things that we think of as personality traits, or, to say, well, I don't speak like that. Well, I don't do that. I don't know these things. And saying, no, those are not personality traits. That's not who you are. Those are the skills that you currently have. And these are some new skills that you can learn. And like you said, just like trying a new food from another culture, just like learning a new language, to say, well, I'm not a person who knows French. Well, no, I'm not a person who knows French, but I am a person who could learn French.
Yes.
So I love that you're identifying that for these young women and being able to explain that difference to them so they don't grow up thinking, well, that's just who I am. That's,
right, right.
So I think that is so beautiful. I also, another thing that you said that I just really noted and loved is that you referred to children who have not been adopted as non-adopted children versus adopted children or foster children. And I think that is so, I think that the because you said that, it kind of opens that door into that thought process that I really love, which is, so I was adopted at 20 months old, and so really,
Yeah.
relate with stuff that you're saying, because so when you're growing up, and if you're one of the only kiddos that you know that is adopted, or that your friends know that is adopted, it can very quickly turn into normal family versus adopted family, right? Or normal family versus foster family. And I love that you're using that term non-adopted instead of using that term normal. what it does is it normalizes every kind of family, that no, every kind of family is normal. And I might be in an adopted family, or I might be in a non-adopted family, and I might be in a blended family, and I might be in a non-blended family.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's a really beautiful way of saying it. And I think it just speaks to the thought process that you're using when you're creating these programs for these girls.
And if I could, Julie, just one more, I think, what I love about that too is that adoption actually just calls out the process of becoming that family, but it doesn't call out the dynamic of that family. So like I'm with you on like being very much aware of what is normal, what's real, and I get it. Again, it's back to education. I think these are the terms that we've heard for so long. And I was even reading a report that like even the terminology which we educate our people about is that's that phrase they were put up for adoption that actually came from a time where women, if they were not married, had to give their child up to the government or the county officials because they were seen unfit to raise. And so we are just sure to let people know to not communicate in that manner because we don't know what you're now translating back to that child. Like, and again, I took on this appearance of like, oh, I must have did something wrong that my mother could not raise me, or and instead it was actually no, she chose a parent plan for me. And then the quick thing too, what we're trying to phrase, I'm gonna see if we can get this into the Webster's dictionary, but we love to call our girls unforgotten girls, because even a lot of the times, like adoption and foster care, if it hasn't been like legally done, we have kinship girls that were raised by, their grandparents or friends, and they just weren't able to go through those routes, but they're still brought in. So we just call them unforgotten girls because their stories, they're unforgettable. Like you cannot now deem them and unmark them not normal, as you said. So yes, I love that you picked it up, and I love you're an unforgettable girl too. I love it. I love it.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that phrase, unforgotten girls, unforgettable girls, because you're exactly right, even putting that label of adoption is challenging for those of us who are not in an adoptive situation. And so my story when I was a child, I was raised by my biological parents for 1 year. But then I was in Korean foster care for almost another year. And so there is that difference. And I love that we have that you are coining this term that includes everybody in every stage of that process, because that's all it is. It's a legal term. It's the same way that, married or not married, these are legal terms, and they don't necessarily describe the relationship between people. Stepmother, stepfather. My daughter has a step grandpa that she calls grandpa. The fact that he's legally, technically a step grandpa doesn't say anything about the relationship that they have. And so I think that it's so beautiful that you've got this term that is so inclusive, and that includes people being raised by their biological parents and people being raised by their one biological parent and another person that's co-parenting, because we're all on that spectrum somewhere. So I just think it's beautiful. And I also love that you identify that term "given up for adoption," and how challenging that can be.
Yeah.
Because I heard that term my entire life. I didn't understand what my story was until I reconnected with my biological mother. And I learned that I was actually I was kidnapped by my biological grandparents, and then I was human trafficked to America. And I didn't know.
Right.
And my adopted parents didn't know. Nobody knew this was happening. But these are the situations that when we hear "given up for adoption," we get kind of one kind of picture and stigma in our mind, kind of idea in our mind. And there are so many other reasons and situations that again cover that spectrum. So I love that you're picking up on and educating other people on, hey, this term this is a difficult term, and it's a term that's very common. People aren't trying to use a term that's harmful, but it is. The other things that were told to me growing up as an adopted child, and people, it's all best intentions. It's always like great intentions.
Right,
So
right.
your biological parents in Korea, they didn't have the resources to take care of you the way that they wanted to. That's one, it's a lie. That's not what happened.
We're well off.
So, that's what adoption agencies were saying. This
Yep.
is the right thing to tell your child because it sounds great. It sounds better than your biological parents gave you up for adoption, right? It sounds better.
Right.
But what it ended up doing was causing a link in my childhood brain that continues to this day, still actively fight against it, which says if you don't have resources, if you don't have money in the bank, if you don't own your house, if you don't have these things going on, you will lose your family.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's something to grow up thinking. That, if you don't have money, resources, food, shelter, that you will lose your family. And it's not a true statement, but it is something that growing up, when we say to kids, your parents really loved you and wanted you, but they couldn't afford, right? Us, those connections, it's very, very challenging.
Yeah, and Dr. Julie, I know we got to keep, but to that point, it's really so powerful. Even that phrase, you just made me think about it. Even my biological mother, and again, it's probably started with good intentions, but what that does for the child, because when I interpreted, okay, she was unable to raise me, she didn't have it all together. Now that made me look and view with her differently, and it's like she, what I'm like, she didn't deserve that, whether that was the fact of wherever her bank account, wherever her mental health, wherever that was, she didn't deserve. Now I'm just looking at her differently, and thankfully, it's just really, God is good. But thankfully, my mother that raised me, she ensured like that the respect and the love was still towards her. And that's one of the things in my story I'm grateful for is like in a room with both of them, I never had to be shameful of what love or act this way with one and another way. But I think like you said, like we have to be today more aware and really just pick up that torch of how we're communicating that experience because you can have a child that now changes a stigma or can no longer is affectionate when they do meet their biological parent or when they're already in their space. Because I think I had to quickly grow up and relearn how to love her and appreciate her for herself and her decision. And so today I'm grateful for I love her. I always did. But yeah, like I love that you said that. Go ahead.
It's beautiful, these kinds of discussions that you guys are having with the public and doing this education and really explaining some of these challenges or just sharing that experience so that other people can understand a little
Yeah.
bit. It's beautiful. So what are some of those other etiquette pieces that you help not only the girls in the camps to learn, but when you're doing the educational pieces as well?
Let's see, when we were doing the educational pieces, so when we did always accepted, never rejected, again, we're all about the words. We do it actually over a bonfire of s'mores. So we want to be intentional just to create a very intimate, but like comfortable and inviting experience. Again, because it starts with great intentions and some of us, even myself, have said, yeah, my mom gave me up. We know that these are kind of difficult conversations, so we want that atmosphere to be inviting and folks to know like this is never and will never be a pointing at you experience. But we also bring in advocacy partners and therapists who actually have either worked in the domestic child services department or for women in general. So we brought in one for DCFS and one for women, and they helped like guide along those conversations. Like, how do we stem here? Like, and people just so they can share those open misconceptions, excuse me. And I say it all the time as a quick joke. I'm like, it's not group therapy, but it is that conversation because you are releasing that off yourself. And I can't tell you like how amazing even for traditional parents, their own children, they identify like what words am I translating? So not only are they being educated on their language that they're speaking about adoption, but just language in general to our children because you are taking that in. They are sponges. They're taking that up. So and at the end we burn them all off. They write down their misconceptions. I even wrote down mine. And that was like I wrote down no longer explaining my story because I think I would edit my story to make sure you were still comfortable because I knew this probably was an uncomfortable experience for you, but that takes away the beauty of my story and that also I am now limiting you of how much you can learn in this moment. So burn that in the fire and just eat more s'mores.
Yeah. So are your events mostly then for the girls, or do parents and like community members, can anyone attend these?
So each event is like a design target. So the one I just spoke about with the education piece, that one is more for adults, communities, grandparents, parents who probably are looking into adoption, or you have someone in your family. Kids are welcome. They'll just have to be monitored. But for our like summer camp program and our college readiness, they're actually open to everyone. The summer camp is for any girl, actually. So we don't withhold. We make sure we have some equity for all girls. But specific things for adopted and foster girls are our book scholarship, which is if they are accepted anywhere and they share an essay with us, we award them with $250 from Barnes and Noble. So almost every university has a Barnes and Noble, so we wanted to think thoughtful there. And then another specific event just for our adopted and our unforgettable girls is our purse donation drive. So I've been in high school, and again, I grew up in Chicago, Illinois, proud of my humble beginnings. But I wanted to look cute, and so we make sure we gift our girls, with purse nice, and I do mean gently used. I am the Miss Clayton's closet when I'm coming to that. Like, make sure, it's just something of quality because, again, I don't, our efforts is to make sure we're translating that our girls are worthy of the best. I think people assume adoption and foster care or any disparity. We've been there when you donate a coat to someone that's homeless or without, it may have a hole in it. And we're like, oh, it's okay. They'll be warm. And it's just, what does that say? And so we make sure the girls have quality purses and we fill those with cosmetic little ins and ahs and toiletries so that they can be prepared. So yeah. I hope I answered the boxes.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love the attention to detail there because there is sometimes for girls in general, for young women in general, for women in general, just as
Yeah.
human, there a lot of our challenges come from, do we feel worthy or not? And you talked about shame and how intentional you are about accepting people in the language that they are using, even if that language is challenging, to meet people where they are and accept them for that, and know that that at these events that you guys are putting on, that there's not going to be judgment for coming in at a place of not knowing or not understanding or not having that information, because we can't control what information we have. We can just control what we do with the information we are presented.
That's good.
As they're presented with this new information, that's the time to apply them. And so I think that that's such a beautiful way of focusing on worth, and being worthy. And in when you first introduced yourself, you talked about this is your purpose, and you've talked about how you feel that God has given you this purpose, given you these connections, given you these resources and talents, in order to fulfill this purpose. And purpose is such a huge part of that feeling of worthy. It's so important, and it impacts all of these different pieces of our lives. Do we feel worthy or not? And you are so intentional about recognizing that every person that comes to an educational event, or every unforgettable girl that comes to an event, knows from the start to the finish that they are worthy, And I just think it's beautiful.
Dr. Julie, you are dropping gems. I had to write that down. Did you say purpose is attached to our worthiness? Oh, when this comes out, I got to do that on the Instagram. That is good. That is good.
Awesome. So now you have had a great counseling experience. You refer people to counseling. You clearly understand so much about acceptance and rapport, and how important those things are in our lives. So can you tell us about your counseling experiences?
Yes. Okay. So I did have a great counseling experience, which was my first one ever, right before the pandemic. And I think for me going in, I just recognized like I wanted to give myself a full shot at life. I Not that I had anything necessarily bad for me in my eyes going on. I have wonderful community of friends, my mother's, like I share, my family, my job. But I just knew it was like I wanted to holistify my support. And so for me, that was finding a counselor. And on that journey, I wanted to be intentional that I found a Black counselor. And also a counselor that understood that my relationship with God was also paramount. So I found one that met that quite criteria. And it was like it was less daunting than I thought it was gonna be. Like I think I kind of braced myself. I'm like, I'm that type of girl. Like if it's a challenge, all right, let's get to it. I'm from Chicago, so but I was just very pleasantly surprised with how like relaxed it was, like very conversational. And she was very professional. I can tell she knew what she was doing. Because then we then led into opportunities of growth for me. And I was just very, very grateful that I chose that for myself. And then the pandemic hit. And then it was like, so what do we do? We don't know what to do next. And not no fault. I take ownership. I just did not get back into it. I did increase my spiritual counseling. So I still was counseled there, but to this day, I do not have a counselor, and I know I can benefit from one. I It was a podcast, I believe it's the Black Girl Therapy podcast, and she just shared something I think her therapist shared that anytime we're in transition is a good time to get a counselor. And so I relocated back to Atlanta from New Jersey when I had the counselor, and I immediately recognized that that is what I was experiencing my first like 6 months to a year here. And I'm like, I've lived in Atlanta before. Like, why am I having thoughts or just feelings or just unknowingly is happening to me? And I knew it was because I was in a new transition. And I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I can't say I have an excuse, but I don't know if it's I'm such gratefully like things for you go girl as an entrepreneur and leader of it has picked up. And so that has taken more time and priority. I also know again that a lot of things that I experience um or I'm fighting against is spiritual. So I'm like, okay, let me just increase my time with God, which has been beneficial as well. But I know I will benefit from talking to a counselor. Yeah, that's where I am. It's not okay. Do not follow my example. Yes.
No, but I like how you talked about how there wasn't even anything going on then. You just wanted to find a counselor. And it sounds like you had a list of what you were looking for in a counselor. So how did you get started in that process of finding one that you wanted?
Yeah, so I am fortunate enough. My primary employment, they actually offer, I believe it's called EAP, excuse
Mhm.
me, Employment Assistant Program, and so yeah, use it or lose it. So I started there and I'm like, well, why not? Like I'm gonna get free sessions. Also, I'm always a girl, balance it out. And so yeah, that's how I started. And I just went through the databases and again made sure I had those criteria. I also love that the counselor she came from historically Black college. And I am also a graduate of Parkland University. So I'm like, well, this is just why not? So yeah, I still have that program with my it's
I
gonna
love
happen.
that. And an EAP, for anybody listening, is an employee assisted program, and you might have one at your job or at your employment, and you might not even know that you have that as a benefit, but oh my goodness, ask HR or ask whoever you work with if you have an EAP that provides mental health service at your job, because we offer that here at Heart Solutions, and it is free. It's free therapy. It's free life coaching. It is so much. It takes so much of that barrier out of the search for a counselor and the ability to get support. So thank you for modeling that, because this is like episode 8, and I don't think we've ever talked about EAP.
Oh,
Therapy.
good. I love being a first.
But you said about your EAP, you kind of thought, well, I'm going to use it or lose it, right? I think that's so important because resources are there to be used. So I love that you're modeling that. And you talked about the criteria that you were looking for in a counselor. You wanted a Black counselor. You wanted a counselor with a relationship with God. What does it mean to you to have a counselor with those criteria?
I think even with You Go Girl, representation matters. So again, a part of the stigma that we're coming up against is the perception, like the celebration of stories of adopted foster girls looking good, or not even looking good, but being successful in their own right. So for me, that it's the same for a counselor or my dentist or whomever. It's like I want someone who probably has walked similar experiences and synergies as me. Being a Black woman, being a believer is tough, loving the Lord sometimes, and just being honest so that I'm not feeling like it's all happening in my head. And I think that's the trick of the enemy, who wants you to believe that's what it is, and it's not. So that's why it was important. I think that, yeah, just representation and seeing that. I think it also encourages me that if a Black woman or a historically Black college woman or a believer of a woman, she finds benefit in mental health, then I can believe it too. So it just takes down that barrier as well. It makes me feel even more safe to try it, to identify a counselor. Yeah.
Awesome. And so you talked about how you guys do like scholarships and that purse donation. What are some ways that people listening could get involved and can help donate to any of those programs that you guys offer?
Yes, all of our information is on our website. So you go girl leaders. That is incorrect. You go girl today.org. They can find out about our book scholarship there. They can find about all of our events and donate there. If you're specifically in the Atlanta area, we're actually going to have our first scholarship gala this coming November, and we are going to take in all the donated purses there. So your purses is part of your ticket. Wink, wink. If you want a cheaper ticket, get in our girls a purse. But we also have partner with different local businesses in the 3 cities of Atlanta, Chicago, and New Jersey. If you're unable to make that, to donate the purses there. But yeah, all of our info on our website or our Instagram.
Beautiful. And for somebody who might be listening who wants to attend the camp or thinks the camp might be great for somebody that they know in their life, how does somebody get started, and is there a cost to attending those programs?
Yes, so we have partnered with the Boys and Girls Club for Art Camp. So in a partnership with them, you can actually go to the Boys and Girls Club and choose the location, John Harlan, or you can choose Atlanta, and it'll pop up there. And when you register your daughter for their registration, it is $29, and I believe $47 for their lunch to be included. And then the You Go Girl workshops that'll be within there are free of charge. So they're just going to pay that facilitator fee to the Boys and Girls Club, but they have tons of more programs outside of You Go Girl that is partnering with them there. So you really are going to get the benefit for 5 weeks of summer for your daughter or for your child, and they can sign up there.
Awesome. Okay, well, if you could give a suggestion to somebody on the fence about starting counseling or getting started with some of these services that you've mentioned today, what suggestion might you give?
Do it. Just do it. Listen, your girlfriends, and this is just, I'm speaking from, they're tired of hearing it sometimes. Like, because I also think, we want to enjoy our relationships. And at least for me, I do know the heavy is the head that wears the crown. So I know sometimes my things can be heavy. And I still want my relationships and friendships to be fruitful. And not that they won't be in sharing and bouncing ideas off, but designate a person, and a counselor, that's their job. That is their passion. That's their walk of life. So it's not even probably laying a burden on them. So just utilize that so you can take off some weight of your other friendship, your other relationships, and yourself. And I think like you'll have fun. Like, I was excited to go to my session. I was like, "Girl, I gotta go. I got a session today." Like, I would plan my day. Like, I was just excited to go talk. Like, even if it ended in tears, I just was excited to go. So it becomes almost like a lifestyle, just the fact that, you're always checking in with yourself. Like, think of it that way. You are always checking in with yourself. And I think that's one of the things I'm grateful for and getting a counselor.
Awesome. Thank you for modeling that, being on the fence of being somebody who has been through counseling, has enjoyed it, has benefited. Uh, Things happen in our lives. The pandemic changed everything. Everything is different now. And so it's just like my St. Patrick's Day shirt. We have our systems in place in our lives, and then something like the pandemic comes and disrupts all of our systems. Everything that we had on our calendar, gone. Everything's different. And so those disruptions end up with things getting missed or things not going back to the way that they were. And then it's that initial effort again and energy that has to go into it again and getting that stuff set up. And so I think that is such a common situation. I think it's so relatable to be somebody who's like, yes, I know counseling is great. I know I loved counseling. I know I enjoyed it. I haven't been to counseling in a while, right? Something happened. I moved. I had to find my counselor retired, right? Something happened that disrupted the flow of that. And there's a lot of people. There's a lot of us out there, right? So I just thank you for modeling that and talking about that, because it's so important. That again, like you said, right, always acceptance and never rejection, and that even if you are in that spot of like, yeah, something happened in my life that changed that system that I had set up for myself. That's okay. It is okay. It happens. And we just go, okay, we reevaluate where we are. I think it's beautiful. So thank you so much for modeling that, Danielle. And you can find Danielle at yougogirltoday.org. Also on any social media platform at AYE You Go Girl. Or you can look for You Go Girl Leadership Institute at You Go Girl Leadership Institute on any social media platform at all as well. So thank you so much for being here, Danielle.
Thank y'all. I am Danielle Porter, and I need a counselor.
Awesome. Awesome. So do I. So does Chrissa. We are all in this journey of transitions. When you talked about transitions, always having transitions. Every day we're having transitions. And so I love that you talk about it as a lifestyle, as something that we provide to ourselves to give ourselves that best shot at life. It's beautiful. Thank you so much for being here, Danielle.
Thank you.
We'd love to have you back, maybe in the summer.
Please.
It's awesome to have you back and hear how your counseling journey has gone over those months. So
yes, I enjoyed this conversation so much. This was good food for me. And yes, check in the summer after my birthday and see if I got a counselor. I'm about to text somebody right now.
Love that. I love that. Yes, absolutely. We'd love to have you back. We will get that scheduled for the summer. And
awesome.
Thank you so much for being here. If you're listening in Iowa and you're looking for outpatient mental health counseling, give us a call at 4236. If you're listening to this and you heard Danielle say, I'm about to text somebody right now, and you went, me too, I'm about to call somebody, I'm about to text somebody. If you are in Iowa, give us a call at 800-531-4236. You can check out our website at www.heartandsolutions.net. If you're not in Iowa, go to www.psychologytoday.com, and you can search for what is their spiritual relationship, what is their ethnicity, what is their educational background. You can search all of these things and find different bios for all different providers in your zip code, and pick the one that meets those things that are important to you so that you feel comfortable being in that session. It's not sponsored. We're not sponsored by Psychology Today, but I'm putting it out there because someday we will be. So, all right. Also, if you are a mental health therapist and you're looking for play therapy CEUs, go to our Patreon account at patreon.com/heartandsolution. If you're watching this on YouTube, please follow our videos for new videos every Sunday night at 5.
Yes, like Julie just mentioned, we post new episodes every Sunday, 5 p.m. on YouTube, on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts, or and on our Facebook page as well. So save up your laundry or your meal prep and whatever you don't want to do that week, and listen to us Sunday at 5 while you get that done, and we can help connect you with our resource from that week's episode. If you have any questions for us that you would like to ask anonymously, we do have a new phone number where you can send us a text or leave a voicemail, and we can answer those on our next episode. So that number is 515-650-3231. You can also message us on Facebook at You Need a Counselor Podcast, or on our Instagram at You Need a Counselor Podcast. Okay, so I'm Chrissa Hunt.
And I'm Julie Johnson, and you need a counselor.
And so do you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the You Need a Counselor podcast. We are so grateful that you are here. Now, we want to hear from you. Text us or give us a call at 515-650-3231. You can also find the You Need a Counselor podcast on Facebook and Instagram. If you've enjoyed today's show, please take a moment to like, review, and comment, as all of these things help others to find and benefit from this podcast as well. If you're in the state of Iowa and interested in mental health counseling or behavioral health intervention services, give us a call at 1-800-531-4236. And if you're a provider seeking play therapy CEUs, you can find us at patreon.com/YouNeedATraining. We'll see you for the next episode, Sunday at 5.